criminal justice, healing, education. Good morning, afternoon, evening, however, or whenever you are watching. You guys should know me by now, but if you don't, my lovely name is Holly Berry. I am the host of this lovely program, Morning Mimosas, where we empower the Black and minority communities through wellness, justice, and wisdom. Guys, today's episode is something that's very, very important to me, guys. Men's mental health. So we are going to have a conversation that is long overdue, deeply necessary, and hits incredibly close to home. We are talking about men's mental health. In our community, there is an intense societal pressure on Black men to appear unbreakable, often known as the Superman syndrome, where showing vulnerability is mistakenly viewed as a luxury or weakness. But true healing requires us to peel back those layers. It requires us to bring human back to humanity. But before we get this discussion set off today, let's play one commercial from our lovely partner, Ganell's Crafts.
Good morning, afternoon, or evening. It is Auntie Harley. I am the owner of Ganell's Crafts, where we make handmade crochet items from our family to yours. There are two ways that you can get a handmade item from Ganell's Crafts, and I'm going to tell you about them. The first way, and the easiest way, is to just pick from our available now inventory. We have items like this awesome floppy hat and other items that are available as is, ready for sale immediately. However, you might want something a little bit more custom, like this beautiful red dress. No problem, we got you. You would just fill out an order form, also located on our Instagram page, and we will complete your order. Something to note about a custom order is that custom orders are to be paid for in full before we get started, so we can get the materials for you and we can pay the laborer ahead of their labor. If you mention Morning Mimosas at the end of your checkout or at any point during your purchase, you get $10 off your total. So shout out to Holly for that continued partnership and support. If you want to place an order with Ganell's Crafts, we are open year round. There are only 2 months of the year where we do not take orders. July, because me, the owner, that's my birthday, and December, where we honor our fallen sister and the name of our company, Ganell Crafts. Other than that, order away. We are available now. Have a great day.
They are currently on hiatus because, as you guys know, they do close those 2 months that they just mentioned. So they will be back in August. But guys, as much as I love Ganell's Crafts, let's get into the meat and potatoes of this episode, the panel episode. I have 4 amazing men who are going to come on here and talk about men's mental health. And then I have my co-host, Miss Taylor, who's going to be assisting me. But before we do that, let's welcome them in the Morning Mimosas way, y'all. All righty, guys. Welcome to the show today.
Welcome. Thank you for having us.
Good morning.
Peace and blessings. How y'all doing? It's a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Peace, everybody. Thank y'all for being here.
Of course.
Happy Saturday.
Once again, guys, Taylor Talks is the co-host on this episode today. So please make sure you guys are giving her her flowers as well. But as she's co-hosting with me today, guys, we are focused on the men. We are not going to say anything other than being a support to the men today. So we're going to go ahead and, as you guys know, we love the people that come on our show first. So everybody, can we go around the room and introduce ourselves, please?
Well, I'll jump in and start. My name
Oh,
is Ernest James. I am a mental health advocate and a grief guide. My mission is to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill, to deal with your problems, to heal from the pain, and to fulfill your purpose. And I do that by podcasting. I have a podcast called the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, where we are on 200 and something episodes. And I also am a speaker, public speaker, and I also lead workshops, facilitate workshops on grief and fulfillment and all of those things. And so, thank you again, Holly and Miss Taylor, for having me as your guest today.
Mhm. Shay.
Absolutely. Who's next?
Hello and happy Saturday, everyone. My name is Willie Buford, coming straight out of Flint, Michigan. And it's a pleasure to be on the show. Holly and Taylor, thank you guys for having us once again this important discussion. I am a father. I am a husband, 22 years, a father of five. I'm a deacon. I am a Sunday school teacher. I am someone who likes to serve my community. And it all started as soon as I graduated high school. I went to the military, so I'm a veteran as well, U.S. Army. And through that serving, Vacation Bible School, I found myself loving to work with young people, which led me at 31 with five kids to then go to school and become a teacher. Working in schools, I realized that in the out of school time or after school time space, you have more avenues to build community. And so that is my passion, out of school time education. Through my passion, I have become a National Geographic educator, explorer, a Disney Dreamers Academy presenter and speaker. And I currently work as an education consultant with the state of Michigan, where we have given out $75 million this year to community based organizations who can reach the kids where they are at.
Wow,
that's amazing. That's
that's beautiful.
amazing. Yes,
I love
sir. And
that.
thank you for your service. Thank you for your
Yeah.
service. I appreciate
Yeah.
you, brother. Thank you so
Absolutely.
much. For sure. All right. Well, I'll go next. My name is Tony Bell Jr. I'm a software engineer by day and a superhero at night. No, I'm just messing around. But truly, I'm the owner of the Brand Builders Network. We're a digital media company, software engineer design. We do a lot of work with major corporations in the finance and banking sector. And then I am the founder of the Black Rose Awards, which is a community recognition and impact program that's been in the work since 2023. And essentially, it's my passion project as well. Me stepping into my purpose and just following his direction. And yeah, yeah, I'm from Jacksonville, Florida native, Florida boy, all the way. You know what I'm saying? I don't think I'm ever gonna leave Florida. I love this weather. I love this water. But just like all of the rest of you, beautiful, beautiful people that we're congregating with today. That's the purpose of the Black Rose Awards. It's just to give flowers to the most known unknowns, those very influential individuals in our lives, in our communities that truly make the difference, truly put in the work, you know what I'm saying, and they lead by example. So
Mhm. Indeed.
Pleasure to be in
Absolutely.
community with you, brother.
what's that?
Well, cool. That leaves me. My name is Kevin Coates. I work as a certified self-awareness coach. I've been in mental health 15 plus years, ranging from suicide prevention. I do a lot of work with suicide in teens, house visits, things of that nature. Mentoring, mental health speaker. I do a lot. I have a new business endeavor called Adversity Awareness Training. Our first event out here in Colorado will be in about 2 weeks, and I'm originally from the DMV, Maryland, and I just love to serve people. I have an extensive clinical background. I've worked in eating disorder hospitals, at-risk youth facilities, residential counseling. I've administered antipsychotic meds of all sorts, and yeah, I just love to give back to the community out here in the far and have a clothing line, Never Quit on Yourself, which was created from my own personal story of almost losing my life 3 times. And so I'm just here to serve and meet you all and give back. I appreciate you fellas sharing all that you have.
Likewise, likewise. It's a pleasure.
Yeah.
Pleasure to meet you.
Alrighty, co-host, you're next.
All right. Well, hello, everybody. My name is Taylor Talks. I am the co host for today's episode. I am an author, a poet, and a spiritual practitioner, ranging in different services and modalities. I am honored to be here. This is my second time with Holly on the Morning Mimosas podcast. One of you I've met before, so hello, nice to see you. Um, but it's just an honor. I am a daughter of a single father, a mother of a son. So the topic of men's mental health is very important for me in my personal life and my loved ones' lives. So I'm just really glad that we are able to come together just to hear the voices of you all, the thoughts and the hearts of you all, just to share on this very important but underrated topic. I believe that mental health is something that has become trendy for the right reasons. However, the aspect of men's mental health and black men's mental health is something that is still very under discussed and under touched. So I am honored to be able to assist in holding this space and facilitating this moment for you guys. And I'm looking forward to hearing what everybody has to say.
Pleasure to meet you. Thank you.
Yeah. So
Thank you, Taylor. I so appreciate you being here today. So we're gonna go ahead and kick off the conversation with question number one, and this is going to be the icebreaker, and the subject is reclaiming strength and vulnerability. So the question for the panel is, how can we begin to redefine what true strength looks like for Black men, and how do we give ourselves permission to take off the armor?
Mm.
mm,
Mm.
yeah, that's a good question. I think first of all, how we start is by doing exactly what we're doing now, is having the conversations amongst ourselves. I've learned in my journey, especially the last couple of years, after having gone through depression and divorce and losing my mom and my mother-in-law at the time, and all of those things, and even having suicidal ideations myself, to the point of really considering taking my own life. After I've made it to this side of all of that, what I found is by having the conversations with other men, it opens up the door for us to be able to be vulnerable with one another first. And I think that when we're able to be vulnerable with one another first and start having these conversations, that's when things will really start to change. That's when we will really be able to um, change what the definition of strength is, because we'll realize that although we may be physically strong, there is a part of us as men that we are human. We are human beings, and we are have emotions, and we have, different stresses that we have, that if we don't deal with, not only would it affect our physical strength, but it'll definitely affect our mental strength as well. And I think it already has been, and we just haven't been having the conversations. So I am very vocal now, especially on suicide awareness, suicide prevention, um, because I think as men, a lot of us deal with it or have dealt with it at some point, and we're just not having the conversations to be able to help us to process it better. So I think,
Yeah.
I want to say again, thank you, Holly, for this platform to have this conversation, because I think this is where it starts.
Yeah. I agree with you on that. I feel like, yeah, this is the start. It's a stepping stone. But one of the big pieces to having a conversation, right, is well, speaking for myself, coming up, I'm an 80s baby. I'm a military brat. I come from a family, everybody's been in the military, the service. All of the males in my family exude and exhibit, strength. What I'm saying, the problem solver, the protector, the provider. There's no time to be vulnerable. It so it's like almost rewriting the program how we're raising and teaching our youth as well. You know what I'm saying? Because it literally took me until I, was like maybe 34, 35 years old before I got to a place where I could open up and be vulnerable and then also be able to actually articulate myself, you feel me, and be able to bring the feelings across as words, opposed to how we usually do as men, and we might, we'll be frustrated, we'll be grumpy, we'll be groggy, we might be a little snappy, a little agitated or something to the effect. But and it's not to it's the displace we put on our loved ones and the ones that are trying to pick at us and figure out, hey, what's going on? Why are you acting like this? Or what's going on? You quiet? Or why are you, behaving in this way? So that is big. Is first having the conversation of being able to articulate yourself and communicate that there's something going on or that you're off, in some type of way.
Yeah. And
That's
I'll just respond to that a little bit. With Tony, one of the things I talk to people about, or I suggest to even the youth, is when we were younger. I'm 50, so I don't know how old you guys are, but I know when we were younger, we had a thing called a dictionary, and beside the dictionary was a thesaurus, right? And so there's a book that's called The Emotional Thesaurus that is out now, and I promote that. And I don't get paid for it, but I promote it to anybody, because it gives you the words to be able to express how you're feeling, and they give you multiple words to express the emotion that you're feeling. And sometimes, again, that's a lot of our problem, even with our youth, with our boys. They don't have the words to say what they want to say. And even as men, sometimes we don't have the words to say what we want to say, so we act out, and we can't say how we feel. So, well, I'm just gonna act out, and then you have to figure it out. But I think if we do that a little bit more to really learn how to find the right words to express how we feel, we can get out a lot of aggression and misunderstanding, in that way. So I definitely agree with you with being vulnerable. But that, again, that book is called The Emotional Thesaurus, and I think it's good for all of us.
thank you for that share, Ernest. I like to add too. There are some things that I heard when I was young that made sense, or even for that generation before me that taught things like every man is his own island, right? Is this kind of mindset that kind of gets men trapped in, stop looking for help and trying to take everything on themselves, right? And
Hmm.
then
Hmm.
when I think about that, I think about that generational shift, right? Um, uh, the last generation of men were going through a period where there was a lot of change in society, and there were a lot of things that they had on their shoulder. And they were even in community when you look at the Panthers and what churches were like back then. And we got into a place where men have
Hmm.
been isolated, stuck in prison, taken away from society. And now we have to be the pillars of that society. And we're still in that every man in his own island mindset. So, what we're doing here, like everyone has said, is the right way to begin building that, right? Because we got to get out of that. And then, even uh, uh, you're the priest of your household, right? We know that men are the priest of their household. But guess what? You're also in the body of Christ. So you're a member of the body. You don't have to be the head in every situation, um, uh, and it is so healthy to use all parts of your body when you're trying to move forward.
Mm,
Yeah.
I like that. Agreed. I like that.
Yeah, I would just add, just from experience, we need to get to our youth much earlier. Um, a lot of us, as far as human, it's part of repetition. So again, if you weren't born in an environment where it was communicated or expressed your emotions, that in itself is a repetition. We don't do this. We don't go there. So as young as we can get
Right.
our young men to understand and identify with that anger is a secondary emotion. Um, I love that emotional the source that you spoke of, James. Very pivotal. The challenge is who's going to go through that the source with that young man to help them interpret the knowledge that's in it, and I think that's very important. Um, for myself, we just didn't have the conversations, not because my father didn't want to, just didn't know how to. Um, that put me on a journey of self-awareness
Hmm.
to dive deeper into myself and reflect and understand how my behaviors contributed to my results, but more importantly, how was I thinking? What emotions were coming up? And again, it's repetition because it takes a long time to rewire the brain and get down that path to create those neural pathways. Um, so the earlier we get to our youth, it would be through a platform like this with us men having this conversation, given that we've all been through various experiences and now we can look back and speak in wisdom as opposed to when we were teenagers and not knowing any better. Um, it's as far as how we got here, I think we are responsible as men. We
Right.
created this in some way. We created, all the different little phrases of what we don't do and what we do now. Now we're trying to course correct that, and I love that. I love that we're now combating the, boys don't cry, all those things. But in terms of vulnerability, it goes down to safety. To be vulnerable is to feel
Yeah.
safe, and if
Yeah.
we're not feeling safe, and a child in general needs to feel safe. So, um, if you don't feel safe, vulnerability is not going to come naturally. You need a guide. You need a guide for that.
Yeah, and I'll
Facts.
speak to that real quick, Kevin. I definitely agree with you, and I think the way that we reach the youth is through mentorship. I think
Yeah, yeah.
we have a lot of us who grew up without fathers, and some of us who did, like myself,
Hmm.
that it's our duty to reach out to this younger generation. I know I'm a part of an organization here in Chicago called Champs Male Mentoring. And that's what we do. But I think is up to us as men whether we join a group, whether we join a mentorship program, or we just make sure that we're taking out the time to the young boys that's around us. It don't even
Yeah.
necessarily have to be organized in that way. But if there's a young man that's in your life, whether he's connected to you through blood, like your nephews or sons and all of that, or just their friends as well. And I think our presence and what we represent and how we carry ourselves, even indirectly, without necessarily saying this is how you be a man or this is how you process your emotions. I think as we show up in that way, and they're paying attention, whether we realize it or not, when we show up with emotional intelligence and navigating our own emotions and how we react and act in different situations, I think it shows them the way to go. But I think mentorship is how we reach this next generation.
100%.
Thank you guys for that. Taylor, do you have a second question for the men, please?
Yes, thank you all for sharing. So to move beyond that, next we want to ask a question about navigating the double standard, the internal reality compared to the external reality. So our question for the panel: in public spaces, a Black man expressing natural human emotions like frustration, anxiety, or grief can often be mischaracterized as aggression or threat. How does this constant need to hypervigilantly manage your tone and presence affect internal peace? And how can men cope with that unique psychological weight?
Mhm. So, but it's
Yeah.
uh,
I'm not
w-
hearing it. I'm not sure if I'm the only one.
at 40 years old, I'm still trying to learn how to master my emotional regulation, right? Um, and ultimately that's what it comes down to. Being able to your control, self-control.
Yeah.
Especially given what's going on in our society, day to day, we most definitely have to be very mindful of how we move, how we speak, how we react, because it can be interpreted not only as something as like, we're aggressive or we're abrasive, but it could turn into something to where we may not come home tonight to our family. You know what I'm saying? Behind a miscommunication or an influx of my vocal tone or my body language and my mannerisms go, it is, so it's all about self-control. It's all about emotional regulation, understanding, there's a difference. I can be a little bit more open and colorful at home, you know what I'm saying, amongst my family, amongst my loved ones who understand me and understand the context, right? In which I may react or say something. But in public, we most definitely as men, we're already, we already have the target on our back as soon as we step out the door. You know what I mean? Just because. So we most definitely have to essentially walk on eggshells or, and just ensure that we're doing what we're doing to make sure we make it home at the end of the day. And that's both literally and then also professionally, career wise, going out here and dealing with different businesses, corporations, having conversations, having meetings. um it, when it's in you and not on you, and you step into a room and you command presence and people are truly watching everything you do, we got to stay on point.
That's it.
Yeah. And I'll jump right in here. There's a term that I use or a phrase that I use when I'm talking to young men, but just men in general. Sometimes, and I say, when we learn how to act, we don't have to react,
Mm-hmm.
right? So when we talk about being able to express ourselves in public and not being misunderstood, again it comes back to vulnerability, and it comes back to having the words to be able to express yourself, because a lot of time as men, especially even growing up as young boys, the only emotion that's really have we been taught and accepted is aggression and anger, right? And even if we think
Hmm.
about we get, for those of us who, and I'll step outside of myself because I was raised with my dad, right? My dad has always been in my life. Um, but for those who are raised without their fathers, right? Their main male influences come from coaches. And so when you're playing sports and you got a coach, what does the coach say? Be aggressive, attack the boards, all of that. So even that, you're being taught to be aggressive, you know. And so how does that reflect in your everyday life when the men in your life, number one, are only accepted when they express anger or aggression, and then you're taught to use that anger and aggressive to get to your goals. So it's kind of a dual reality of, oh, this is the way we're supposed to act. But I think when we start to reevaluate, okay, how do I want to show up in the world, and finding the words to express myself to say, okay, I am upset, and I can say that I'm upset and I'm frustrated, and this is why, but I can say it in my words and not in my actions, because my actions can always be misinterpreted. I get loud, like, oh, calm down, like I'm being calm, or I get quiet. That's the other side of it. You get quiet, so now you got that silent anger, and it's like, okay, we don't know what to expect. But if I can verbalize it and tell you exactly how I feel in a way that you can understand it and receive it, then you know exactly where I'm coming from. I'm upset. I'm frustrated. You know why I am, but you don't feel threatened because I said it in a way that you can receive it. And I think that's where, when that becomes a part of us, and we are in touch with ourselves to say, okay, how do I want to show up in the world? How do I want to show up as a man? And that peace becomes a part of you, then
Mm-hmm.
it shows up in the rest of your life. And so when no matter what goes on, no matter what happens in your life, whatever that circumstance is, if you're at peace with yourself, and you know how to, have the conversations with yourself on how you feel, then it's easier for you to express how you feel in that situation. All right, look here, you got to calm down, dude, because you got me upset. or I don't appreciate what you're doing. This is why. To be able to say whatever that emotion is. But I think it starts with us first, with us having those conversations with ourselves first, and then learning the words to express ourselves. And then the more we begin to do that, then it'll show up on the outside.
Yeah, Ernest, I completely agree with you. Talking about peace, I think comes with those fruits of the spirit, right? Peace, meekness, forbearance, and patience, right? And then we also have to remember our why. And we're talking about passing the torch to the next generation. We look at these young men now who's wearing the shiesties and who got the sticks on, right? We got to show them. So we have to be the example for what men look like, because we're fighting a culture that has our kids' minds, right? So if we can, so the culture is what they see on TV and what they hear over the waves. But if we can really touch them,
Hmm.
what men look like, then that can change everything.
Yeah.
Hmm. Can you repeat the question for me? I wasn't able to hear it.
So the question was, in public spaces, a black man
Hmm.
expressing natural human emotions like
Hmm.
frustration, anxiety, and grief can often be mischaracterized as aggression or a threat. How does this consistent need to hypervigilant manage your tone and presence affect internal peace, and how can men cope with that unique psychological weight?
Okay. Naturally, just as humans, tone is so essential in communication. Uh, Society is somewhat taught, um, at least I'll speak as a black man. When I had dreads, with all the tattoos I have and being a college athlete, they already had a label for me. I had people that would, I remember walking into Walmart. There was this white woman with her kid, and I was just walking in behind her, and she stopped and pulled her kid to the side. She said, "You can go ahead, sir." Um, and so you already have a label. There's already an interpretation of who you are based on how you look. And dare I speak with any kind of high pitch or high tone. I'm naturally a more calm, collected person. I can raise levels if I need to for whatever reason, if I'm giving a speech or something like that. But I think for all of us, tone and pitch is to be understood that whether you intend to communicate a certain way or not, you can't control how it's received. And anytime we're elevated and we're not understanding of emotional regulation and how that tone may come off, down to mannerisms, whether you smile or not, those all play a part. Um, I think the education around it is essential for young boys to know how you walk, how you dress, your eye contact, your ability to smile. I think that's all key in the public eye. We're just predisposed already in many people's world that we look and will act a certain way. Um, as far as culture, our music, I grew up with the hardcore rap. And I often ask people who don't grow up how I grew up, I'm like, why do you like this? Why do you like this music? Do you understand what this music is communicating? I actually have stories related to a lot of what I'm hearing in the music, so it hits me in a whole different way, and I have to be mindful of that. I have to be very mindful because that could put me in a space. Um, but I was thinking about something, and of all of this, I think us as men, we can tap more into our nurturing side. And I think that is an element that may be missing as well, is that we are capable of being nurturers as well as providers and protectors and all these things. And nurturing isn't just a female uh, trait. It's something that may not come naturally to us, but we can access that. I'm a father of a 9-year-old daughter, and I've had to tap into my nurturing side in many, many ways that I was not taught. And one way is to be patient, is to give her the availability to express how she feels without feeling like dad is going to be upset. Um, and so there's so many different barriers that we have to overcome. But again, that internal reflection and looking inside yourself, along with having the right guidance, it'll help you get out of hard situations as opposed to getting in those later on when you may regret something that you've done.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Mm.
Kevin, I agree with you. I think that we definitely need to do more in that area. One of the things that I've been learning even more recently now as a speaker is body language, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of our language that people listen to what we do more than what we say. And what I mean by that, even the way that you carry yourself, the way you walk, the mannerisms in which you move are all saying something before you even open your mouth.
Yeah.
So I think that, not only do we as men need to tap more into, learning what body language and how we represent ourselves and the way that we act and carry ourselves, how does that reflect on how people receive us even before we say anything. I think that's also something we can do more to teach our young boys as well. Like, you want to be received, you want to be loved, you want to be accepted. But before you say anything, even the way you act, the way you walk, the way you dress, all of that sends a message for a person ever gets to hear what you have to say. And so if that, even if you're saying like I love you, but your facial expression and your aggression and the way that you're coming off is saying something different, then you may generally love someone, but they're not going to be able to hear it because everything else about how you're presenting yourself at that moment is saying the opposite. So I think that's something I'm learning even as an adult to really now be more in tune with. Okay, what is my body saying? What is that body language? How am I acting? What am I saying before I open my mouth? So that I don't do something or move in a certain way that has already made someone feel uncomfortable before then I'm trying to say, okay, this is a safe space, but I've already maybe subconsciously did something or said something to make them already feel or not feel safe. So I think that's something that we all need to could look a little more into is what is our body saying before we open our mouth.
Yeah.
That's good.
Thank you guys for sharing that. I'm trying to be respectful of everybody's time, so I'm going to go ahead and go on to question number three, if you guys don't mind. And question number three is the subject of healing generational and collective trauma, the heritage. So, my question for the panel is many of our fathers and grandfathers survived by burying their struggles, focusing strictly on provider status and survival. How do we honor the resilience of those that came before us while choosing a healthier, more emotional, open path for ourselves and our children?
Mm. Man.
I think it goes back to what Kevin was saying earlier, which is stepping into our nurturing side, right? To be able to show our emotions and express our emotions, and also to express and encourage this next generation with our words in that way. I grew up. My dad used to always say, "Respect me and love your mother," and so he came from a generation where you didn't say "I love you," right? So the only
Mm.
time that my dad would really say "I love you" to us, right, was when he had something to drink. Now he get a little liquor in him. Then now he want to come and hug you and kiss you, which was cool because we got to see that side of him, even though he was in a I can't think of the word, but even though he was a little, wasted, if you want to
Inebriated.
say, when he has, yes, that's the word. Thank you.
I got you. I got
So, but even if he was in that state, he still in that state he was free. You know what I mean? And so he hugged on us and kissed us, and even though we didn't want him to at that time, he was like, "Man, get back." But when he wasn't, he was very calm, very straight to the point. And it wasn't until after my mom passed away, that now he says it more often. Now he's
you.
very expressive of how he feels. So I got 8 siblings. There's 9 of us. And so after my mom passed, like my mom was always the nurturer, and he was like the provider and the what is it, punisher, if you want to say it that way.
Yeah.
But my mother showed all the love, and he used to always say, "Respect me and love your mother." But after my mom passed away, even his personality began to change. and he's more expressive of love toward us. He would tell us, "I love you," and hug us and things of that nature. Now, without drinking, because now he stopped drinking as well. So even that is a change in him. And so I think that same thing we need to do as well, to be expressive of how we feel, expressive to our emotions. And I think it helps when you have daughters. I'm a girl dad too, so when you have daughters, that kind of force you to step into that lane. But I think we have to force ourselves just as much when we're dealing with our sons as well. I have four stepsons, and that was one of the things that I started when I came into their life. I told them at the very beginning, I said, two things I want you guys to remember. No matter where we go from this point, I want you to remember, one, I love you, and two, that I have your best interest at heart. So with those two things, I know that it's gonna come to time when you like, you're not my daddy. I know it's gonna come to time when we're not seeing eye to eye. I know it's gonna come to time when it's time for punishment or things to be put in order. You're not gonna like me, but if you remember that I love you and I have your best interest at heart, even when we're dealing with the hard parts of life, it'll be okay in the end. And my all my kids have grown now, but it has showed itself, that that was the right way to go. So I think that as we are more expressive ourselves with our sons and our daughters, of how we feel and letting them know how we feel, and also encouraging them and showing them love, I think it'll begin to change the narrative that we have been given, and some of the narrative that we have promoted ourselves or accepted ourselves. But it'll begin to change the whole narrative, and that's how we change this next generation.
That's good, Ernest. That's really good. And you said it in that. I think we honor them by uh, changing, right?
Hmm.
I think like and Ernest, you talked about your daughters and how we treat women now, and even how far in the last few generations women have came as far as rights and things of that nature. So as women have become more independent, men, we haven't really accepted that change. They're the change that we have to make also, because this is a change that's moving us towards something better. We don't have to take all that on anymore, right?
Hmm.
And it's going through that change by opening up, being vulnerable, and then showing the young people that you men can have emotions as well, right?
Hmm.
Hmm.
Facts.
I'll go. I would say with the evolutional change of work, or traditional relationships, um, we have to evolve that. We may have had a title, 40 or responsibility 40, 50 years ago, but it's a little different now. The challenges are different now in how we nurture our youth, whether it be social media, all the different complexities that come with that. And we have to adopt more skills. And one of the skills that I would say is to be more emotionally available and be willing to listen more and not act as if you always have the answers because that's the role you are supposed to have. Um, with men, I would say we struggle a lot with pride and ego. And so disarming that pride and ego that gets created when pressure is really high, when your protective status may be challenged or your protective status may be challenged, just to sit back and just surrender. So, I don't know this right now, but I'm willing to navigate and explore how to be better at it. That teaches a lot of those who are following us that, you know what, they're not perfect, and I don't have to live up to be perfect.
That's
I just have to be willing to be open to learning and navigating whatever the nuances are that's presented in front of me now. And that ego is, especially when we get angry or when we don't get our way, we revert back to that little 10-year-old boy. And I think a lot of men later in life, they don't realize that. They don't realize that that child is still within us if we never nurture it and heal it. And pride and ego takes over and it sabotages our relationships. And we find ourselves questioning will we be single and alone or in and out of relationships the rest of our life? But why our kids don't love us the way we want them to love us.
Yeah, man, y'all, all y'all boys hit home. You know what I'm saying? truth be told, to sum it up, it changed, you know what I'm saying? Me coming up as well, my father, he was in the house and up until I was like 14 years old, up until the time him and my mom divorced. But he was just militant, super militant, the disciplinary, you know what I'm saying, the provider. There wasn't the I love yous or, hey son, I'm just checking in with you, you know what I'm saying? What you got going on? We really didn't spend a lot of time together. Even though he was in the house, it's almost like he wasn't in the house. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Hmm.
So unfortunately, that led me to look for, the father figures in other areas that I know for sure I shouldn't have been looking in, you know what I mean? Um,
Yeah.
but in looking at where I'm at and having two sons and a daughter, my oldest son is 21, just graduated with his accounting degree. My youngest son is
Congratulations.
19, double major at UCF, and then I got my baby girl, she's 17. Um, the biggest thing for me knowing as far as childhood trauma and coming up was always I felt like I was alone. Like there was nobody paying me attention, nobody really, checking in on me or worried about what I had going on. So I made, just crazy rational decisions and choices that, now looking in hindsight, slowed down a lot of my personal progress in life, right? So that was the biggest component for me in being present for my kids, regardless of, how much money I had, what we had going on, where we staying at, I always was like, yo, the biggest takeaway that my father could have gave me was in his absence. And to know like, bro, I ain't got all the answers, but I'm gonna be present and I'm gonna stand 10 toes down and I'm vulnerable enough to open up with my kids and know, hey bro, if I don't know the answer, I'm gonna figure it out. You feel me? Pops is gonna figure it out. I'm gonna be the problem solver for you and we gonna weather the storm together. So I feel like that is one of the um biggest aspects of me and my kids' relationship that fostered for us to be so close now, right? Because regardless of what's going on, regardless if they know, if they done did something and it might be some trouble or some static or whatever the case is, they all always are comfortable in knowing that I'm gonna be there and I'm gonna have their back. So that in itself is what pushed me to address my own childhood traumas, and do the counseling thing and really step into taking a long look in the mirror as to those things that happened 20 years ago. Why am I still holding on to them? Why am I doing this? Or why does my kids may feel this way in the season that I'm not giving them as much attention or, I'm not being as present as I should be. So I agree with all y'all, man.
That's true.
Thank you guys for your vulnerability throughout the episode. I promise I'm gonna get you guys out of here shortly. We have two more questions. Miss Taylor, can you go ahead and give the fellas question number 4, please?
Man. So, gentlemen, our next topic is in regards to the community and culture.
So, my love, you are. I'm not able to hear you. You're extremely staticky.
Can you hear me at all?
It's
No.
it's it's that it's staticky really bad. It's okay. I'll go ahead. I'll go ahead and pose the question. So, question 4 is about cultivating safe brotherhoods, the community. So, the question has to do with because therapy has been historically stigmatized or culturally inaccessible. Informal spaces like barbershops, sports leagues, and group chats have often served as a default healing spaces. How can Black men intentionally cultivate a deep, trusted brotherhood where it is safe to talk about depression, anxiety, and trauma without fear of judgment?
Yeah.
Well, I'll say here, here in Chicago, with some of the gentlemen in which I'm connected with, especially with the Champs Male Mentoring number one, we come together to mentor the next generation, but we've also began to have things where we connect with each other and have spaces where we connect with each other, where we just have to be like, you know what, let us come together because there's a part of us that we don't want to teach this next generation, and that's how we handle our emotion is all and all of that. And like I said earlier, our actions speak a lot more than what our words do. And so we have to be able to, we want to tell them that they can come to us and say how they feel and express what they're going through and things that they're dealing with, but we ain't talking to nobody, then it's going to show. And so one of the things that we have done is to start to have more things for us as men to get together. Um, Recently, one of my guys, who's a therapist, Aaron Williams, did a whole thing with black men where we came together and was able to talk about different things and really building that safe space. Again, here in Chicago, he's not the only one. There's some other spaces that we have in the city too, where we can get together and have these conversations. But I think that's where that vulnerability comes in at to build that brotherhood. I think that's where creating those safe spaces have to really be safe, for one another, and just reaching out to one another and inviting each other into these spaces that we are building. I think that's the first, that's the start from where we, can start to change some of these things that we've been dealing with and passing on. Because now we're actively showing up for one another, actively calling each other and say, how you doing? And we say, I'm good. Okay, but how you really doing? You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like, what are some of the things you're really dealing with? And again, that goes back to that vulnerability. That's why I am so open about, the depression that I dealt with, the suicidal ideations that I dealt with, how I felt when I lost my mom, all of those things that we hide from a lot of the times. I'm very vocal about having those conversations because I know I'm not the only one that's dealing with it. And if I can open up the door to create that safe space for other men and other people in general, then that allows all of us a space to be able to be vulnerable and open up and share our stories as well. And I think that's where we start.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
Thank you for
Uh,
that.
I believe just being intentional, right?
Mhm.
Like you said, we have these spaces and places that men meet, basketball and bowling leagues and things of that nature. But be intentional
Mhm.
on what we're going to do when we meet there. And we're not just going to rag on each other like guys normally do. But let's have a
Exactly.
few topics, right? Let's do a Monday mimosa, right? Let's let's have a topic where we can come and sit and discuss as men that are
Yeah.
things that we deal with, right? Because it takes a village, right? And I may not know, but what you went through could be exactly what I need to help me get through what I'm going through.
Exactly. I agree with you wholeheartedly, fellas. There's so many different ways, or there's so many different variations of what the space can look like, right? But the biggest component is, yes, we can get together and we can congregate and we can have a little nice time and some fun and a vibe. But let's also, like you say, let's have a goal in mind. Let's have a mission. Let's have a topic of discussion. And me and few of my other fellow family members and mentors, we do something every month that's similar to that. Will pick some type of, activity, beach, mimosas, brunch, go on a boat, yacht, whatever the activity is cool. But we'll have a few topics to discuss that is going to be beneficial to all of us. And it's centered around the core things of us just as a people, growing, farming, what I'm saying, new business opportunities that we may be able to get into, hunting and fishing, building, just different things that are informative to teach us, give us something that we done picked up for the day that we didn't know yesterday, just to empower us, make us better, as a group, as a whole, because we're only as strong as our weakest link.
Yeah, yeah. I think all the platforms are There's a lot of them out there. There's a lot of opportunity. I think it boils down to where you are individually and what kind of space you want to tap into. I play basketball every weekend. I take my young boy, mentor him, and I bring him to the basketball sessions with me. Then we sit down and we eat. Before we do that, we do a coaching session. Um, so I think the platforms are there. It's what we do when we're not in those spaces that I think really creates that habit. Remember, it's all repetition. So we can have all these conversations and talk about how we want to be better at this, but if we're not actively practicing the things that we've talked about that we found to be beneficial by means of that conversation, then it goes as a waste. We kind of restart every week or every other day. And so while the platforms are there, whether it be social media or what have you, uh, how about a father, scheduling something with their kid at the dinner table? I know I didn't have that. We didn't sit down at the dinner table. Mom, she made food and you grab something and you went and eat. Then you can set it up wherever. To my man's point, it's being intentional, but then it's the follow up and maybe having an accountability partner. Somebody you tap in with a little bit and see, hey, how am I doing? I know with my friends, sometimes I'll reach out and I want to be better at being a romantic or something like that, or a better listener, and I'll ask like, hey, what do you think about this? Did I navigate this in a way that might have been healthy to this relationship? But it's going to be the repetition with any kind of change, especially at a neuro level. You got the education and information, but if you don't put action behind it repetitively, it'll be use it or lose it, and that's essential to growth.
I just want to thank all of you guys for first and foremost for being patient. I know we went over the time a little bit, but I have my final
You're good.
question for you guys. So this is the closing and the takeaway from this episode, and it's about overcoming institutional distrust and redefining help. So the question is from a lack of cultural competence, excuse me, from a lack of cultural competent therapists to deep-rooted historical distrust of the medical system, the barriers to seeking professional help feel massive. What does an effective, culturally affirming mental health practice look like for a Black man? And what advice do you guys have for finding it?
I think for me personally, I would say that it starts with being able to see yourself, right? So I think that when we're looking for ourselves and representation of ourselves, so we're looking out for African American therapists and African American, coaches, those who may be similar to us or look like us or sound like us, then we begin to feel more comfortable with opening up and even stepping into those rooms that we have never been into. So, for me, like I mentioned, my man Aaron Williams, who is a therapist, to be able to say, "Oh, okay, there's a brother that looks like me." Not only does he look like me, but he comes from Chicago. He's here in Chicago, born and raised. So we have a lot of stuff that we already have in common. Before I ever walked through his door to sit on his couch. You know what I'm saying? And so I think that plays a big part. And I think there's a lot of African American therapists, whether men or women, and it just for us to be able to start building that trust with the system, we have to just see more of us, and look for more of us because we are out here. And once we start seeing, oh, okay, now that I see me, now let me have the conversation that I need to have. And once we start doing that more often, and then not only us doing it, but inviting other people into those spaces, because growing up, we heard, what happens in this house stays in the house. Well, never get worked out and never get worked out in the house. You know what I mean? We just, push it under the rug. And those are the things that you don't talk about and all of that. Well, the house is falling down at this point. You know what I mean? And at some point, we got to start saying, okay, we got to step outside this house so we can get the tools that we need to bring back to the house in order to start building it back up. And I think that's where we are as a community and as a people. We have to go get the tools. The time is out for us to suck it up and push through it and all of those. Yeah, we did that for years. Especially in this country, we've already always had a disadvantage that we had to push through. Okay, but we've done that long enough. Now let's get the tools that we need to build so we can build bridges over these things that we pushed through and all of that. So now the next generation doesn't have to go through, whatever that is. They don't have to go through those waters, but we've got the tools to build the bridge where then now they can safely cross over and be able to move us all for it as a community, as a people, but with the tools to do it so that we emotionally regulate it. Where our emotional health and our mental health is in place. We just have to go get the tools, and it starts with us, being able to see ourselves in that representation. And then once we have the representation, then we got to start, kicking those doors open and say, "Hey, y'all, I'm in therapy. Come join me." So that's what I believe.
I agree.
Yeah, I
Anybody
definitely.
else?
I was gonna say I definitely agree with you again, brother James. All you gentlemen have been right on point, and it's just that, right? Um, there are a lot of pressures of the world on us, and what we need to do is insulate, right? We need to become our own. Just think about it. Consumerism in the black community. A lot of people find their security on how we spend our dollars, right? How much more could we build our own security if we were spending those dollars within ourselves? You just change that dollar exchange into an exchange of love and then of help and mentorship as well. How much more powerful will we be, like you said, Brother James, if we are our own healers, right? If we are our own community. So I think it's really time for us to get into a village concept, right? Ubuntu, I am because you are, and really work together, right? And we don't need
Mhm.
the pressures of the world go away when all the community takes them on together.
Mm.
Facts. Well said, my brother. Well said. Well said. Facts, man. That's the biggest thing is us uniting, us really, really uniting. Um that distrust, right? Is deeply in our programming. You know what I mean? So the ultimate step to that, right, is what? Instead of trying to rewrite the program, let's create or build our own program that is completely virus free. You see what I'm saying? Completely cancer free from any of those booby traps that were systematically set in place and set up for us to be and have this distrust amongst our own people. It shouldn't be like that. We should most definitely always be checking and looking for any and every room, any and every organization, any and every company or business we spend money with. We are the biggest consume. We've known this for decades at this point, that we are the largest consumer base for our economy. So why is it that we don't have our own true infrastructures? You know what I'm saying? Our own black hospitals, financial institutions, the educational systems. If we did that, and if we do that, and we really truly accept and take the village mind state, then I mean, the proof is in the pudding. The word there would I feel like we would truly change probably 70-80% of, what I'm saying, the problems we have systematically, economically, and within our communities, bro. Like if we can really, really truly have our own program that's not affiliated or associated or tied into anything else that's
That's right.
making us attack us or hate us or envy us. I'm saying, so yeah, that's the only thing I would like to add to what you fellas are saying.
Um, I
Ooh.
guess I'll go from a actual experience direction. So working many, many years in addiction treatment facilities and eating disorder hospitals. Um, what I was seeing, what I had learned was vulnerability was a one-way street. And so I think that is a big barrier and a big obstacle to why certain cultures don't connect with other cultures perceptively. And what I mean by that is human to human, some of the deepest connections are built when vulnerability is transferable between both people. And when you think of therapists or counselors or what have you, there's a lot of red tape. When you sit in that moment, they are there for you, um, but to build a sense of trust, you want to hear something about them, but there's red tape. And so a lot of the times therapists get bottlenecked into tell me how you feel. I can't share with you my experience. I can't share with you what I've gone through. And then if that therapist doesn't look like you, then that's like in a way two double negatives, right? You don't look like me and I don't know anything about you. And I've heard this from a lot of my teens over the years. I don't really know how to open up to this person. I don't know anything about this person. And if anything, it's like you having a teen go talk to a stranger. They just have a title. And that doesn't necessarily cultivate safety. Um, and so from an institution standpoint, it gets tricky because vulnerability is a one-way street where I want to hear what you have to say and tell me your darkest and worst stories. I would say on the minority side, we already have somewhat of an inferiority complex and imposter syndrome. So there's a subconscious aspect that, we're not necessarily known to be smart. We're not necessarily known to dive into the inner workings of how our brain work, how our thinking patterns are. If anything, I don't really care. And essentially what happens is we get taught not to value ourselves. We get taught subconsciously not to go into spaces where it's a little bit more challenging to learn how to love yourself. It's a little bit more challenging to learn how to value the circle you keep close to you. So I'll just take anything because I don't really know how to discern if this is a truly good person in my corner. Um, so those are a lot of obstacles I've seen in different institutions. When I come across certain minority teens or even adults, is I would have a lot of them come to me because I share my story and I share what I've gone through, what I've been through, and I would ask for permission and things of that nature. But when you have a certain title, when you get to a certain level of education, there's some red tape where you have to be careful so that you don't have to go through some kind of lawsuit, some kind of consequence and ramifications from it. It's tough. It's tough. We can go into a lot of different directions as far as substance, vices. You speak of consumerism. The trade-off is I get a little bit more attention, for that dollar. I get a little bit more self-esteem, things that I'm not getting elsewhere where I really need it, where I didn't get it as a kid. And so we get trapped by just consuming, and our ego and our self-worth gets. I mean, where I come from, we back then we called them dope dealers, the phone posits. Dudes would get robbed for that. You get killed over a $250 pair of shoes,
Yeah.
and people on the outside would look at it and be like, "That don't even make sense." But that's just how lost we would be. Our value and our worth would be so low that I would rob and kill and put these shoes on, and I go back to the hood and everybody idolizing me. I'm the man. I got these shoes on, and it's so much. You're worth so much more than a pair of shoes.
Hmm. Exactly.
Well, guys, I have taken up a lot of you guys' time already. So I just want to go ahead and say thank you guys for being vulnerable with us. And thank you for letting me and Taylor be you guys the safe space for this hour. Um, Guys, please, 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 please follow all of these gentlemen. They're all doing amazing things in the community. And guys, we're going to get out of here because, it's time to get out of here. You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
all
It's
right, you
brunch
guys.
time. It's brunch time. Yeah.
Yes, yes,
Thank
it
you so
Thank
is.
you.
much. It was a
Thank you,
pleasure.
Holly and
Thank
Taylor.
you.
Fellas, I'm gonna
Been a
get
Pleasure
with
meeting
pleasure.
you,
y'all,
fellas.
man. Y'all
Yeah.
have a blessed and safe weekend.
That's you as
We
well.
will.
Pleasure. Thank you
And
for
you got a new
sharing
brother in
everything.
your corner forever now.
Yes.
As you guys know, this is Morning Mimosas. We empower the Black and minority communities through wellness, justice, and wisdom. We're gonna get out of here, guys. You guys have a good day. We'll see you later.
All
All right,
right.
have a good one. Thank you.
Thank